Last month was my 4-year anniversary of using Starlink satellite internet. And although I've done a lot of Starlink videos on this channel, doing tutorials and development updates, things like that on Starlink, I've just realized I've never done an actual review of the service itself, which is kind of crazy. After 4 years, you would think I'd have something, but I don't. So let's fix that today. Since I just passed 4 years of using Starlink, I figured I'd make this video talking about the good things, the bad things, the things that have changed, and the things that I've learned along the way. So if you're interested in Starlink satellite internet and you want to hear from a longtime customer about whether it was worth it or not, this video is for you. Let's jump right into it with a few of the good things about Starlink. The best thing about Starlink by far is the coverage that it provides and the areas in which it is available. So as of right now, this video, Starlink is available in over 130 countries. It's basically global satellite internet. Their constellation of over 7,000 satellites provides, worldwide coverage, basically anywhere with a clear view of the sky. And for me in the United States, that means just about everywhere. Starlink has finally allowed more rural areas, remote areas to finally get access to high-speed internet, and that's definitely the best thing about Starlink. You can get Starlink anywhere. So for me personally, I moved into this house back in 2018, and at that time, the only internet option that I really had was DSL, and that was limited to just 5 megabits per second down and like 1 megabits per second on the upload. So when I got the chance to get Starlink back in early 2021, it was a complete game changer. And that's definitely the best thing about Starlink, is that it finally gives rural communities and people that live in remote areas access to high-speed internet access. Another great thing about Starlink is that they don't have any contracts or commitments. So they're very unlike traditional ISPs. I'm thinking about Comcast, HughesNet, Viasat. Those kind of companies would lock you into long-term contracts, sometimes 2 years or more, with a bunch of like hidden fees and things like that. Starlink is completely different. They're very transparent and upfront in their pricing. You basically just pay for the equipment upfront, you pay for your monthly service every month, and you can cancel whenever you please with no hidden fees or anything. And you don't have to stick around. You can cancel their service, sell your dish if you want to somebody else, and move on. You're not stuck with Starlink for 2 years. The monthly service price that they show on the website is actually what you pay per month. So in my area, the service costs $120 per month, and that's what my bill is every single month. No additional taxes, no additional hidden fees or anything like that. So I can consistently know what my Starlink is going to cost me month after month after month. And since my equipment has already been paid for, all I'm on the hook for is that monthly service price until I decide to cancel, which I can do whenever I want. Performance is another good thing about Starlink, specifically the speeds and latency of the internet itself. It's pretty amazing, and I could talk about it all day long, but let me just show you. Let me run a speed test here in the Starlink app real quick, just to show you the kind of performance that you can expect. And this is one of the things that has improved consistently year after year after year. In the beginning, when I had Starlink at first, I was lucky to get 100 megabits per second. My normal average speed would be around 80 megabits per second download and maybe around 10 to 20 megabits per second on the upload. But as you can see in the test right here, I'm getting 241 megabits per second down and around 23 megabits per second up, with my latency clocking in around 21 milliseconds. So that's pretty insane. I've seen speeds during some hours of the day as high as 400 megabits per second down. I had an upload speed test the other day, which was my highest ever at 50 megabits per second on the upload. And my latency typically hovers around the 20 to 30 millisecond range. So speed, internet speed, it's not meant to really compete with fiber. You're not gonna ever get the same performance out of Starlink as you are with fiber. But then again, if you have access to fiber, you're not interested in Starlink to begin with. So what you really have to compare Starlink to in terms of performance is other satellite internet providers like HughesNet and Viasat. And latency is the big one that differentiates between Starlink and those other legacy providers. Latency on Starlink is more comparable to terrestrial internet sources like fiber or cable. You can do online gaming, you can do video conferencing, things like that, where you can't do with Viasat or HughesNet. So on those traditional satellite internet services with their geosynchronous satellite orbits, you're talking latency in the 600 to 700 millisecond range, more than 10 times that of Starlink. which means you can't do a lot of internet activities with those other satellite internet providers. So performance, Starlink definitely blows other satellite internet providers out of the water in both download speeds, upload speeds, and latency. Another advantage to Starlink is what I just showed you with the app. So the Starlink app is like your command center for managing your Starlink internet service. So this is what you are using to monitor your connection, to manage your service plan, look at billing, look at the performance statistics, everything. So the Starlink app is really modern. It's a nice user interface, and that kind of shines a light on the company overall. The company is a very modern tech company. They make internet fun, which is something I haven't said about any other internet service provider in my life. So they're constantly releasing updates for the app. They're constantly introducing new features to help you better manage your Starlink system. Now this can be a pro or a con depending on what your user preferences are, but for me, I prefer the more modern Starlink company. They're focused on software, they're focused on user interface, making it super intuitive and easy to use. And this is definitely one of the biggest pros of Starlink, in my opinion, is the fact that you can do everything yourself on the app or on their website. You're not having to call in to a company to be able to do something like change your credit card number on file or create a support ticket or things like that. So in my book, the Starlink app, their website, their user interface, their software is top notch and one of the best reasons to get Starlink. Next, let's talk about reliability. You might be surprised to find reliability in my good column, and that's because Starlink has proven, at least for me in my experience, to be incredibly reliable. Now, when most people think of satellite internet, they think of like the old Dish Network and DirecTV systems, where if you're in a thunderstorm or any rain or there are heavy clouds, you got constant interruptions and outages. Well, that's not the case with Starlink. Even though it is satellite internet, you can see the satellite dish behind me there on the roof. It doesn't go out with weather unless you're having the most heavy downpours or heavy snowfall. So things like wind, cloud cover, most types of precipitation are not going to affect your Starlink signal. I would say I have more than 99% uptime on my connection over the last 4 years. There's only been a handful of times where I can remember I had extended outages due to like weather. So in the heaviest of rain, you might notice interruptions anywhere from a couple seconds to a couple minutes, depending on how heavy it's raining or snowing. As far as global network outages and things like that with issues with the Starlink network itself, there have been a handful of times, maybe 3 or 4 times that I can remember over the last 4 years, where the Starlink network itself went down. So I can remember one particularly bad night where I think it was like 45 minutes to an hour where my satellite connection was completely offline due to a Starlink network issue. And then it came back online, but for the next few hours or so, there was degraded service, intermittent types of connection issues going on. But that's only happened maybe 2 or 3 times over the last 4 years. So I would say overall reliability has been great. Nothing like the old satellite TV systems that you probably remember. As far as reliability of the hardware and components go, I've never had a single issue with any of the Starlink dishes that I've owned. I've never had a single technical issue that required, replacing hardware or cables or any kind of advanced troubleshooting. My Starlink units, my Starlink dishes have been rock solid, no issues whatsoever. Another advantage to Starlink, especially compared to other satellite internet providers, is that there are no data caps and no speed throttling. So on the residential plan that I have, that's $120 per month, that comes with unlimited data, and they're not gonna throttle you if you go over like 1 terabyte or 2 terabytes per month. I've not noticed any throttling whatsoever. I use around a terabyte per month, I would say on average, which is pretty normal for a North American household. But even if you use more than that, I've heard from my YouTube audience and my blog audience that they have no problems using 2 to 4 terabytes per month. It's only when you start to get into the ridiculous area of like 5 or 6 terabytes a month where you might have some speed throttling on your connection, because Starlink is looking at you like, hey, maybe you should be on one of the business plans if you're using that much data per month. But not a worry for the average customer. If you're just a normal internet user, you're gonna have access to completely unlimited data. You're not gonna be restricted at all in your speeds or anything like that on Starlink. So let's talk about gaming next, because this is actually another pro of Starlink. It's something that Starlink has been good at lately, but it's kind of like speeds where it has definitely evolved over time. So when I first got Starlink back in 2021 and into 2022, I had a lot of issues doing online gaming with Starlink. I play games like Rocket League, also some online sim racing like iRacing, a lot of fast-paced games that require, a really reliable connection. Any lag is going to be noticeable and is going to give you a disadvantage as a player. First-person shooters also fall into this category, obviously, but games like that, Starlink was rough in the beginning in the first couple of years, but since they've launched more and more satellites, they've upgraded not only their satellite antennas, but also the satellites that are orbiting overhead. And latency and online gaming performance is definitely one of those areas where it is vastly improved over the beginning with Starlink. And these days, I can pretty much game online with Starlink without any issues, without any lag or interruptions at all. It's very rare that I have any kind of interruption or outage, and mainly those are correlated with, having weather. Like if I'm gaming during a thunderstorm or a heavy downpour, those are when I might notice the increased lag and interruptions. But overall, most of the time, Starlink is great with online gaming. You'll find a lot of different varying reports on this if you search online for different reviews in terms of gaming on Starlink. And so I will just say your mileage may vary depending on what game servers you're connecting to and what your satellite installation looks like. So it's really important with Starlink to have an unobstructed view of the sky, a completely clear view without any trees or anything like that. So a lot of it comes down to the user and making sure that you have an optimized connection. But if you do, your experience with gaming on Starlink should be fine. The last thing that I'll mention as a pro of Starlink is that their technology is just cool. Everything from the antennas to their accessories, to the website, to the app, everything is just fun and cool and modern. It's a very tech-focused company. They're not like your traditional ISP. They like to not take themselves too seriously, and you'll notice a lot of humor built into not only the website and the app, but also the accessories. So I've done a video before, 10 things you didn't know about Starlink. And in that video, I talk about a lot of the hidden Easter eggs that the Starlink hardware team and app team like to kind of hide in their products just to have a little bit of fun. Like 420 references, taking viral internet memes about Starlink and incorporating them into some of their accessories and their sticker pack and everything like that. So it's just an overall fun company to be a part of, to be a customer of. And that's definitely a change from your traditional ISP that you might be used to. Starlink Internet, though, isn't perfect. There are problems with it, and so in this review, I'm going to give you my honest opinion about the bad stuff with Starlink because I think you should know about it before you decide to sign up. So I think the biggest downside of Starlink, the biggest problem that people have with Starlink is the customer service. And this should come as no surprise if you've hung around any of the online Starlink communities or read other reviews for Starlink. Customer service is where Starlink kind of fails to deliver compared to most other companies. So the biggest issue with Starlink is that their contact method is only by support ticket. So if you're a brand new customer and you're trying to sign up for Starlink and you're having an issue, or maybe you have a question about some of their products or services, you can't just call a number and talk to a salesperson. They don't actually have a phone number on their website at all. You can't just pick up the phone and call Starlink. You have to go through an online contact form if you're not a customer. If you are a customer and you're having a technical issue, you've got to go through an online ticket system. And that can create some problems, especially if your internet goes down all of a sudden. So there are some people that have had their internet go down, maybe it's an equipment problem or something, and they submit a support ticket, and that response time from Starlink can be anywhere from a couple hours to a couple of weeks in extreme cases, which is a major problem if your internet is down and you have no other options, right? So I talked about before that Starlink is a modern tech company, and that really shows with how they do their customer service. Everything is based online through ticketing, and a lot of people just don't like that. If you're interested in my personal experience, I would say that the customer service has been fine. It's been acceptable for me. Like I'd mentioned, I haven't had any issues at all with any of my Starlink dishes. I've had some billing questions, some technical questions, so I have used their support ticket system at least 4 or 5 times over the last 4 years. And I would say on average, it takes them about 2 days, 2 to 3 days to respond to my tickets. But keep in mind, those are not priority tickets since I'm not offline or anything. Those are just general questions. So you can expect longer response times for questions like that versus if you have a unit that suddenly goes offline. So I would say customer service is kind of like gaming on Starlink, where your mileage may vary. You could have good experiences, you could have really bad experiences. But overall, I would say based on the comments and things that I get on my blog and YouTube channel, customer service is definitely one of the top downsides and concerns that people have about Starlink satellite internet. The cost of Starlink is another big downside. So it's pretty expensive, not only upfront, but per month if you're comparing it against more traditional terrestrial internet options like fiber or cable. So the equipment cost is a big shock for most people. When I bought my kit, originally it cost $600. It's gone down in price over time. So the current hardware kit costs $349 up front in most of the country. And then you also have to pay your monthly service fee, which is also pretty expensive. So I pay $120 per month, and that's a price that's gone up twice in the last 4 years. So originally, when I signed up for Starlink back in 2021, I paid $99 per month. And then a year or so later, they jacked it up to $110 per month. And then a year after that or so, it's at the current price of $120 per month. I'm also a subscriber to their Roam plan. That's their travel internet service. And that has also gone up in price. So I believe originally it was like $150 per month for their unlimited travel internet plan. And now it's $165 per month. So Starlink, the prices for the service has definitely increased over time. But on the flip side of that, at least the hardware prices have come down. Like I said, originally the kit behind you that you see was $600, and now you can buy that same kit for just $349. So compared to other satellite internet services, Starlink is pretty competitive in terms of pricing, especially considering you don't have long-term commitments or contracts. But if you're comparing Starlink against options like fiber, cable, or 5G wireless home internet, then it's definitely going to be way more expensive. Another downside of Starlink is the DIY installation, troubleshooting, and management of your system. So when you buy Starlink, you can't pay them to install it. They do not want to help you really at all. They'll provide, installation tutorials for their mounts and everything, and they'll provide guidance on how to install that through their documentation, but they're not going to help you get hooked up with like a local installer that could help you. There's a lot of people out there that are maybe physically unable to climb on top of their roof like this. Maybe they're elderly, they can't, realistically be expected to install Starlink themselves. So that's one of the major downsides of Starlink, is that everything's DIY. You buy the kit from the website, they ship it to you, and it's on you 100% to figure out how to get it installed correctly. Now, this is where a lot of the third-party companies have come into play. There's a lot of new businesses that have popped up over the last 4 years that specifically do nothing but Starlink installations. So there is a lot of help out there that you can search for on Google, and even in most states anyway, that you can have some third-party company come out and help you. But again, that just adds to the cost of your Starlink installation. So you might spend $349 on the equipment, and then you might spend another $300 to $500 on having somebody install it for you if you can't do it yourself. So it's definitely one of the major downsides of Starlink, just the fact that everything is on you. And that comes down to troubleshooting as well. So remember I said you could create a support ticket, and support can offer you some general guidance on troubleshooting, but at the end of the day, it comes down to you climbing up on your roof and fiddling with the dish, maybe the cable, or whatever the troubleshooting steps may be in order to solve your technical issue. So that's the good and the bad. Is it worth it? Over the last 4 years, do I have any regrets? Yes, it is absolutely worth it, and no, I don't have any regrets at all about getting Starlink. I live in an area where I don't have access to fiber or cable internet. Even today, even years later after I originally got Starlink, I still don't have access to fiber internet. And I've checked with the local companies that are installing fiber around here, and there are no plans at all to introduce fiber down my road. So I will have Starlink for the foreseeable future, and I'm okay with that because I think it's been a great experience overall, especially compared to some of the other satellite internet options. So my neighbor, before I got Starlink, they actually had, I think it was Viasat that they had, and they absolutely hated it. They hated the contracts, they hated the performance, it just generally sucked. Now, luckily, I was able to get Starlink before I had to resort to getting Viasat or HughesNet, and I'm so thankful I did because it's just so much better in every way compared to other satellite internet providers. The speeds are better, the latency is better, the pricing is more upfront and transparent, and usually will be cheaper. And it's actual modern high-speed internet where you can do things like online gaming and video conferencing. Whether it's worth it for you or not, I think it comes down to, there's two categories of people. The first category are people like me and most other Starlink customers where they don't actually have any other alternatives to Starlink besides maybe Viasat, HughesNet. Uh, they don't have fiber, they don't have cable, so they don't really have a choice. If they want high-speed internet, they have to go with Starlink. And if you're in that camp, then definitely put Starlink on your list of considerations. Look into it. They do have the 30-day trial period, so if you're not happy with Starlink in the first month, you can return it for a full refund. That's the first category of people. The second category of people are people that might have access to fiber or cable that is not performing to their expectations. Maybe it's unreliable, maybe you have frequent outages, maybe the speeds aren't what you expected. If you're in that category of people, you just have to weigh the pros and the cons. For example, the pricing is much higher than probably your cable connection, but if Starlink is going to give you 300 or 400 megabits per second compared to what you're getting now, it might be worth it to switch. But the vast majority of people are going to fall into that first category, people that simply don't have any other options besides other satellite internet, and Starlink is the way to go. It's definitely the best out there. As I've talked about with the speed and online gaming and latency, Starlink continues to improve year after year after year, and I'm really looking forward to the future because, if we're at 300, 400 megabits per second now, Starlink's getting ready to launch their V3 satellites, their third generation of satellites, and those will continue to increase the performance. They're talking about offering 1 gig speeds eventually in the next few years. So if you sign up for Starlink, you can basically guarantee that things will just continue to get better and better and better as far as your performance goes. So really, if I had to sum up this video in just a few short sentences, I would say that Starlink blows every other satellite internet option out of the water. If you have no other options like fiber or cable, then Starlink is definitely the best ISP that you can get in most of the world. They have superior coverage, they have superior speeds, superior latency, and even though the customer service might be a little iffy and some of the other bad things that I mentioned in this video might apply to you, it's still overall one of the best options out there as far as internet connectivity in rural and remote areas. So now I'd love to hear from you. What questions about Starlink internet do you have for me? If you're watching this as a Starlink customer and just because you're curious my thoughts, I'd love to hear from you. What are your favorite things about Starlink? What are the bad things about Starlink that you've had experiences with? I'll chat with you guys in the comments below. Thank you for watching.